In spite of the fact that I actually took notes in preparation for this episode, there's more rambling than usual. And so all I can say about it in advance is these are just my reflections on having done 99 episodes to date and planning for many, many more to come. Welcome to episode 100 of the Vulnerability in Life and Art podcast. As you may know, every 10th episode, I take time to share, what I've thought about over the course of doing these interviews. And so we're at number 100, and I'm actually super intimidated. It's ridiculous. I don't know what it is about the number 100. But I feel like I did when I did the very first episode, the introductory one, just talking about what the podcast was about. And I feel just as unsure as I did then. But I'm going to dive in, and I guess realizing that I did make notes, which normally I don't do. I try not to plan what I'm going to say. But this time I did take some notes because there were some things that I think, things that were important for me to be able to share with you. So to start, I would say all the people that I've spoken with up till now have had a huge impact on me. Every conversation has meant something special to me. Every single person that I've spoken with has shared things about themselves, their insights, their fears sometimes, their plans, their successes, all of the things that they've shared with me. And I feel quite privileged to have had those conversations. And I'm happy to have been able to share those more broadly. So I'm very grateful for that. And then if I reflect back on 2024 in particular, I only realize this because I participated in a manifestation workshop at the end of 2024. So it was a wonderful opportunity to reflect back on how the year had gone. And we did this really cool exercise. It was with Susan from Welma Studio. So we did this exercise where we used our phone. So we flipped through the photos and we did a month at a time. And you would sort of scan through your pictures and think about what you want to keep, what things worked well for you, and maybe things that you could let go of based on the pictures that you took. And of course, not everything's going to be reflected in the photos, but there was enough there that I was able to think of other things and connect some dots. And so weird things like, where did I spend time, or what did I value based on the pictures that I took? And one of the things that's so strange was cooking, because not a cook. Like, my self story is I don't know how to cook. I'm not a good cook. I love to eat. I'm not great at cooking. It's part of the family story about me. Everybody knows not a great cook. But oddly, when I look through my photos, so many photos were of meals that I had made or recipes that I wanted to try. And so my phone was telling me, you got to change that self story because it's not right, actually. You do enjoy cooking and trying new recipes. And so I made a conscious decision at that point to just plan for 2025 that I was going to give myself the credit for wanting to cook and trying to cook, and it doesn't really matter what the outcome is as much as just that's something that I enjoy doing. So bigger picture is just you see patterns, you see things about yourself that you might not realize otherwise. And I was starting to take notes about things that were coming out as I flipped through the photos for the year. And like two Carsons emerged. It was so strange. When I saw the books that I was looking at, or images that I was enjoying, or things that I was commenting on, there were two Carsons that stood out. And one of them was Anne Carson. So I did an episode actually talking about the H of H playbook by Anne Carson. So it's a retelling in modern language about Heracles or Hercules. And it's a stunning book. And I found it because I was searching for books about Anselm Kiefer in the local library, and she quotes Anselm Kiefer in her book, and then that led me to other books by Anne Carson, whose name I recognized actually because I studied ancient Greek philosophy in university. And so I knew her as someone who translated Greek texts, more poetry, but I didn't realize that she gave so much more to the texts through her artistry, through drawing, through collage. And there's a book that she wrote called Nox, which is a translation of a Greek poem, and it's about the death of her brother. It's a it's like a stunningly beautiful book. It comes in a box, and you pull it out, and it's an accordion style, and it's like postcards and things taped, and visually just absolutely stunning. I think the original book must have been absolutely stunning. But she's Canadian. She's a poet, and I'm Canadian, not a poet, but a huge admirer of poetry and this just incredible, unique way of expressing herself through the language of others as she translates the Greek poetry, but also the drawings and the collage and the very, very beautiful way that she expresses herself visually on a page. So she was definitely somebody who I noticed and spent time with in 2024. And the other one is David Carson. And honestly, I didn't even realize they were both Carsons until I started making notes as I was going through the manifestation workshop activity of looking through my images. And I was like, there's Anne Carson. Oh, there's David Carson. And that's also a long time interest, because I probably more than 30 years ago, I'm not entirely sure, but I started collecting this magazine called Blue Magazine. And I didn't know why. I just thought the covers were absolutely stunning. And I don't think I ever read the magazines. Actually, it's like one of those things where I just like, oh, I want to have this because it is so beautiful and so evocative. And it's actually terrible because the last time that I moved, I did a big cleanup, and gave away the Blue magazines, and I don't have them anymore. And I searched for them actually frantically a few weeks ago and realized that I had given them away. And I was so sorry that I had, because later I realized that David Carson was the designer of those covers. And there was something about them that really caught at me. And it wasn't just about the water or the surfing or the skateboarding or whatever the topic was of the cover, in the same way that the Anne Carson pieces pulled at me. The David Carson pieces did too. And then I got his book of collage work, and I look at it almost not every day, but regularly. I find it so inspiring. I find David Carson's collage work, his graphic design work obviously is extremely well known. It's changed the face of graphic design. And his collage work, I find just exceptional. Again, somebody who can express themselves in that way, so unique and so special. And I'm not sure, I'm not sure how helpful that is to anybody but me. But when I think about the people who inspire me and push me to do something a little bit different, so I came up with an image that I wanted to use for this episode that was inspired by Anne Carson and David Carson. They take no responsibility for the failings of it. But I hope just, something about trying new things inspired by people who have just created such an incredible work. And I guess I could close episode 100 if I think about, somebody shared with me the Proust questionnaire, which I'd never heard of, which is, I can't believe I haven't because it's been around for decades apparently. It's like a parlor game, and there's a certain set of questions, and then how you answer those questions reveals a lot about who you are. And so the first question is something like, what does happiness mean to you? Or what is happiness for you? And as I was thinking about this episode, I answered it in a different way, kind of off the cuff when I first thought about that question, that it was about silence in partnership with somebody else. But another way for me to think about what happiness means to me is this just unbelievable inspiration. People I may never know, I may never meet, Anne Carson, David Carson, and so many more. But what makes me happy is the ideas that come to me inspired by the ideas and actions of others. I'm so grateful. So really just, I hope that means something to you. I will keep on. I love these conversations that I have with people about creating and reflecting and struggling and making and testing and doing in some form or other. And I hope these are stories to grow by. They have been stories for me to grow by. And whether it's through conversation or just looking at people's books or being inspired by people's stories, it's the reason that I have this podcast. It's the reason I continue. It's the reason why there's going to be episode 101. And I think that's the reason why there's going to be episode 201 and 1001, is because people are so amazing in what they do and also their generosity in sharing with the rest of us. And so I dedicate episode 100 to all of you, to all the people who have spoken with me and the people who listen. And I look forward to the next 100.